Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jobs Fuck podcast, a place where emergency services and public services can message in anonymously with their funny stories, rants, and anecdotes. Remember, you power this mission to make emergency services workers feel heard and feel less alone. If you have a story to tell, you can email in at thejobpod25@gmail.com or send a message or a voice note, which are always welcome, to Instagram at the Jobs Fuck podcast or J Dartmoor. You can support the mission by joining the thousands of others who've either subscribed, shared with a colleague, supported me on Patreon, grabbed a copy of Best Selling Police Memoir, or have ordered some official merch. All those links and more are in the description. However, this is not about me, this is about you, and more importantly, we are joined today by ex-police officer turned blue light coach, Andrew Atkinson. Let me do that bit again. Today, I'm joined by ex-police officer turned blue light coach, Andrew Atkinson. Andrew, are you ready to solve some of our listeners' problems and weigh in with what they have to say?
Let's have it, guys. Let's go for it.
Amazing. Andrew, just tell us a bit about yourself, mate. Tell us about your journey.
Like yourself, I was a cop. I started in 2014. Done 10 years, all frontline based, so all kind of in uniform. 7 years on response, and then 3, close to 4 years in a sort of anti-violence department, where we just basically tackled antisocial behaviour, drugs, gangs, and stuff like that. For the lateral 3 to 4 years, all based in Glasgow.
So
I took
anti-violence based in Glasgow, so I imagine you've seen some shit.
to be honest, the response was the same. Like response, it was in the East End of Glasgow, which I think it had at one point when I worked there, it had the lowest average life expectancy in Europe or something. I think it was like 51. So I
Oh,
had
mate.
this. It was class. It was really good. It was a really good place to work. Really good place to start. Busy as fuck as you can imagine, but I think it's probably the best place to learn.
That is insane. So people who work in, like, I don't know, the sleepy village of some fucking arse end town, I think they'd have a rude awakening if they did a shift on your end, wouldn't they?
We used to do that sometimes. We used to look at the calls in these areas and think, "You fucking bastards, you've got nothing." And we had like a full screen of like, unanswered calls. It's like, how the fuck are we going to get some help here? But, like, it was what it was, and it was like I said, it was a good place to start. I sometimes did feel like, Jesus Christ, this ever going to end?
That sounds absolutely insane. I imagine you was off late quite a few times. I imagine it would be like on a night shift that you fucking waiting that 6 o'clock, 6 a.m. blue light call to come in. You're there like, oh, for God's sake. And you just know you're going to be off late again.
Mate, every time. And then, like, even, I don't know if you guys done it, but like 1 in the morning, we always try to meet up for a coffee just to kind of get a wee extra done to get through the rest of the shift. And then, inevitably, as soon as you pull up at your wee usual spot, as soon as you put the window down to talk to your pal, it's like an immediate call to some fucking mental
Always,
call. Every time. But
always, always. Right. Well, then. So we'll start with the story of the week. Okay. So every week I have a look through what's happening in the news and stuff like that related to emergency services. Last week it was ambulances, people being asked to share an ambulance, which I thought was fucking crazy. This time we're going to go it was on where was it? It was a police federation, actually. And I mentioned this briefly in another video, but I thought we'd go through it and obviously we'd talk about it. So, police exodus due to low pay is public safety catastrophe. So police reform is dominating the pages of the Times, and rightly so. But amid talk of more officers and new technology, we are ignoring the elephant in the room: the chronic failure to address historically low pay, and as a result, the retention crisis facing police forces across England and Wales. We welcome the ambition to improve and make policing more effective, but a functioning force requires frontline officers to be paid a fair wage for the heavy responsibility placed on their shoulders. We are on track to lose 10,000 officers a year. The proportion of officers with less than 5 years' experience has jumped up by a third since 2019. We are hemorrhaging talent, and as long service officers walk away because they simply can't afford to stay. Newer officers quit after just a few years on the beat because their pay of 29,000 starting salary outside of London cannot meet the cost of starting a family. The government insists it is recruiting, but it takes years to train an officer properly. Replacing the officers likely to leave in the next 5 years will cost some £10 billion. It is public purse and public safety which will suffer if we cannot halt this exodus. It isn't just a staffing issue, it's a public safety catastrophe. So, Andy, what's your thoughts on that, man? 10,000 cops suspected to be leaving in the next few years, a year. Like, that's 10,000 a year. What's your thoughts with that?
mate, it really doesn't surprise me. It's pretty poor figures, but the time that I was leaving, people always said like, "Oh, will they not be gutted to lose you? Like a good cop and stuff." Well, that's what they tell me anyway. But an experienced cop, 10 year service, they'll be gutted to lose you. And I was like, nobody actually cares. Like as long as they're replacing you with a probationer from college, it's a number. So it doesn't matter if I've got 10 years experience. Like no one, of course, your immediate team might care, but in terms of an organisation, I don't think they could give any less of a shit, to be honest. And at the same time, I was leaving. I know of maybe 4 or 5 cops that I was quite close to with the same sort of experience. They were all leaving as well, and like that, no one in the organisation that actually cares. It's like your immediate team might care, but other than that, it doesn't really matter. And I don't think they're doing much to really address it. I think they're quite happy. They're saying it's a crisis and all that kind of stuff, but I think they're quite happy to just replace them with a probationer at a lower kind of rate and then just build them back up and then expect them to leave after maybe 5 years. I think the police has changed so much, even since we joined. Like, I think when I joined, even 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, it was definitely a job for life. I didn't have any like thoughts about leaving. It was definitely a career. Whereas when you speak to people who are starting now, it's like, yeah, I'll do it for a couple of years and see where I'm at. It's like that was never a thought before. It was always like you've done it for life, but it's completely changing. But it's completely
Yeah, so
changed.
it's
Sorry,
like,
it's not even changing anymore. It's completely changed.
well, I completely agree, mate. When I started on my block, I was brand new. I think the person closest to me had 3 years in. And then above that, it went up to like 3 years, 8 years. I had people who had 15 years, 20 years, 22 years, 26, 27 years on my block. So it's like this wealth of experience all around. And by the time I left, I had, like I said, about 9, 10 years in, and I was miles ahead of the next experienced cop because I was on response for years and then I moved to like an investigation unit. And there was there was a lady who was a civilian, but she had 22 years in, I think. But actual as a police officer, there was me, and then the one below that was a lad who had, I think it was 3 years in, something like that. And they hadn't really had much frontline experience prior to going on like this investigation role. And I know what you mean, mate. When they turn around and go, you know, your team will miss you, and of course they will. But the organisation, I mean, I sent in my resignation, let the chief inspector know, and I used to break my fucking back for that place. I used to stay on late and everything else. And it was literally like a copy and paste. You could tell it was like a copy and paste reply to an email.
No
Hi
fucks
Jay,
given.
really sorry. This must have been a difficult choice for you and everything else. And then it was like, so I can. So why do you think people are leaving? Why do you think? Do you think it's the organisation don't want people to stay for so long?
I think it's like a. I don't know about that, but I think it's. I don't think they're doing anything to address that problem. But I don't know if they want it. I just don't think they really care when it's happening. But I think it's like a perfect storm of everything, really. Like I think the public perception's probably never been worse of the police. Quite often unfairly, but it's probably never been worse. And all you see in social media is like if you're a young guy or girl looking to join the police and you're looking at all the videos on social media, it's like, why the fuck would you ever want to do this? All the police do is get the piss ripped out of them. And that's like a perfect storm of the policing standard probably not being good enough. Because as you say, when we joined, it was like a wealth of experience that would never take the shit that people deal with down the street. When you see videos of inexperienced cops with cameras in their face, they just look like rabbits in a headlight that can't deal with it.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're talking about those kind of experienced cops, they would never fucking entertain that in a million years. Like it would be dealt with immediately. So I think when people have seen that, it's like, well, is that the reality of what the police is like? Like I would don't want to do that. And then when you talk about, like, I could talk about the fitness standards all day, but like the fitness standards have dropped. The entry in general just dropped. I know a couple of people in recruitment who have said they've had applicants who've turned away, and then they realised, shit, we actually need to fill numbers here. They phoned them back and said, listen, I know we said you weren't good enough, and you come. So like you're saying, it's a
No,
perfect storm
really.
of people like, I don't know, the experience in the shifts becoming mega low, but then also the people standard of people coming in is not quite hitting the target it used to. So when you've got that perfect storm of like the blind leading the blind into response policing, really, because like you say, most response shifts now are operating with a team pretty much of people just out of probation or still in a probation. So it's like, if you think back to when you were just out of probation, you didn't really know everything at all. If anything, do you know what I mean? You're still learning. So you're then trying to learn, but then showing someone else what to do when you don't really know yourself. So there's cops going about completely unsure of themselves, completely unsure of what they're doing. So when they're getting confronted in social media and stuff, they end up looking idiots because they don't know how to deal with it. And it's quite a lot of it's not their fault. But yeah, I think the standard of policing has probably dropped a decent bit in response shifts.
What do you think needs to improve things need to improve, Andy, because I know what you're saying, because the experienced cops are leaving, and because they're then hemorrhaging staff, they're lowering the standards for cops to get in, because the organisation, I mean, I had a colleague who always used to say this, and I used to think she was quite cynical. Whether I now completely agree, is that it's all about bums on seats. It's not necessarily the experience, but how many how many sets of handcuffs do we have on a shift? How many bums are on seats? So, what I mean, the number one, pay. You know, cops need to be paid more, because even when you look at, they say, oh, well, a cop earns, 30, 40 grand. Yeah, but then you take away the pension contributions, and when you're on the top pay, I don't know what it was like for Police Scotland, but when you was on top pay, you were paying 500-600 pound a month out your wage into your
Yeah.
pension. So your actual take home pay, real take home pay, is fucking minuscule. And yes, that's fine if you go the full 30 years and you get your big payout and your pension and everything else. But for everything you do, if you only intend to stay in, or you want to stay in for like 10 years, you're basically being paid utterly terribly for work which you should be paid a hell of a lot more.
I think one of the big things, I don't know what it's like in England, but in Scotland, I feel as though the response shifts, all the shite just slides downhill to response shifts and lands at their door. Like, they deal with everything.
Exactly the same.
And if you're a response cop these days, all you want to do is get the fuck off the shift because it's terrible. You get held on all the time. You don't get your breaks. You don't get this and that. You're doing night shifts. Whereas if you can sneak off into the department and just hide in a cupboard for the next 5 years, you get the exact same wage. So I think if you're trying to keep experience on the shifts and do what everyone joined the police to do, is actually be a response cop. That's what, to me,
Mm,
that's what being in the police is. But so many people
yeah.
just want to get away from that now because it's like, it's so bad that it's like, why would I do that if I can get to a wee cushy unit or a cushy number that I can pick up the same wage, do Monday to Friday 9 to 5, and not deal with any of this shit you need to deal with in the street now? I think if you start to incentivise being a response cop, it would encourage experience to stay in the shifts, and then in turn, it would just make the shifts better. And like that would have a compound effect of making people want to stay because it's actually quite a good place to be. You get incentivized, extra money for being there, and also just have better people there as well, more experience.
I completely agree. I think it's bollocks that if I'm on a response shift, fucking scrapping with some shitbag after I've just been to 5 or 6 awful incidents, and then you've got Joey Cop, who's on a unit sat behind a desk doing case files, earning the same money. Granted, I might get unsociable hours pay, but for the extra 100 quid a month or 200 quid a month it is, I think I'd much rather have my evenings and weekends and my regular sleep pattern, and my fitness all right and everything else, and less fucking mental health issues. So I completely agree with you, mate. I think there has to be a lot more incentive to keep people on response, because if response disappears, everything else crumbles, doesn't it? Response is like the fucking table, which everything else is rested on. You lose response, you're kicking, the rest of it crumbles and falls to pieces. And I'm actually quite worried about the future of the police, because um, we need really good cops. And I get loads of people message me, I'm sure you're the same, saying, I've had enough, I want to leave. And people go, "Oh, should I join?" And I always say, "Yeah, join. We need good cops. We need good officers." And I'm sure with what you do, mate, is that you support people in the emergency services to, have the best career possible with the health and the fitness, which is amazing that you do that. So I think we need to really incentivize people to stay on response, because it's where all the crazy stuff happens. Like you said, it's seen as the dumping ground, as the shit ground, but it's actually the most important part of policing. I think is those cops that do turn up and deal with things. I mean, I had some fucking great times on there, but also I had some pretty awful times as well. And I know a lot of people that are in the same kind of boat. So yeah, closing thoughts on that, mate. What's your closing thoughts on that story, and what do you think needs to change?
Like I say, I think what we're speaking about now, like it makes sense to me, it makes sense to you. People have lived it, but I generally don't think it will change. I don't think they care enough to really think about that. As long as you say they've got bums in seats and numbers, then that's all that matters to them. So I don't see it changing, which is a shame. But I think it could be so much better. And I think the main drive. I don't know how you address the kind of lack of quality applying, um, because the job's becoming so much less appealing than it was maybe 10 years ago. That all the incentives are kind of drying up, I suppose. And when all you see in social media is the police getting absolute piss ripped out of them and kind of dealing in I don't know, in terrible circumstances, it's hard to say that's a great job, go and join it. You don't really see anything good,
The
so to speak.
organisation needs to back cops a lot more as well, I think,
Yeah,
because I did a video. I did a video yesterday, and it's you've got inexperienced officers starting who probably shouldn't be in the job, but they're being brought in because of the recruitment standards, because experienced officers are leading, so they need to backfill. But equally on top of that, you've also got cops who are actually afraid of getting hands on with somebody, or they're afraid of being robust, which that's what the public want, isn't it? They want the public to tell the shitbag to fuck off. They want them to chase the Billy burglar and drag them to the floor, and to be robust and to be harsh with the people that deserve it. But yeah, if they do that and they make a complaint, they're up for the high jump with the job. So if you're 10, 15 years in and a complaint sticks, you're potentially looking at not just getting sacked, but maybe even a criminal investigation as well. So I think, as well as everything else we said, I think the job just needs to look after its actual employees better.
I know of 2 or 3 people over the past couple of years who have been investigated for something basically a load of shite, like complete load of shite, but they've been off work for a year, over a year at times. Um, like the investigation takes long to actually get started, so people are sitting wondering about their actual career for a full year, and it might sound great. Like, to me, it sounds great getting full pay for doing nothing. But like, if you need to think about your like, if you've not got anything else lined up you want to do out with the police, like that's fucking stressful. If you've got a family and everything else, so even that, like, it's just they treat the way they treat people is pretty poor at times.
Yeah, I totally agree. Right. All right then. Well, on that note, let's get into some rants. Let's get into some stories.
Let's have it.
If you do have any stories you want to submit, remember all of these are treated anonymously. You can send me a message on Instagram at the Jobs Fuck Podcast, or you can send me an email at thejobpod25@gmail.com. All of this, like I said before, will be in the description of this episode. So I've got one here. I went to a sudden death. Fucking hell. So I'll read over some of these, and sometimes you only really skim read them. I just kind of get the feel of them. And I've just read a bit further on, so I'm looking. Went to a sudden death where he was an old boy, probably around 80 to 90 years old. He lived on his own, but he had an adult son. Anyway, he was found dead in bed and had unfortunately died on the job with his blow-up doll. I had to break it. I had to break the news to his son that his dad had died, but his stepmom was still full of life.
Ah, for fuck's sake, man. I mean, some of these things you just think they must be made up, but you can guarantee they're not.
Yeah, that
Do you know what I mean?
fucking the stepmom full of life bit killed me.
Like honestly, if you didn't do the job, you'd think that is 100% made up. If you experienced it, you'd probably think that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I know from personal experience. Like, I've gone to jobs and I've told people afterwards, and they've been like, "Fuck off, that didn't happen." Like, I'm telling you, that happened.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get sent some which it's obviously like a bit of a rumor, but there probably is a bit of nugget of truth to it. But then I just get some like that, which I'm like, that's too ridiculous to not be true because of the
Yeah.
nature of the job we do.
Fucking hell, man. Aye, that's
So
pretty emotional.
how would you have broken the news to that son?
Hey, but you surely can't tell him who was in the bed with him. Yeah, you just need to keep it. Your dad is a lovely fella, and that was that.
He died doing what he loved. He died
Aye, dad doing
peacefully.
what he loves. Just leave it at that. You can't bring the sidekick into it.
Fucking hell. What do you reckon he should have gone to the funeral?
Aye, get a nice
Do you
dress.
reckon should have been
Aye,
fucking stood there? Like, did he get her a veil?
aye. Part of the family section at the front.
Stick her at the front. Oh, anyway. Right, next one. I remember in my probation going to a concern for welfare for an old lady. On looking through the window, I could see her lying on the floor by the fireplace. There's a few death ones coming in, being
Fucking
sent
hell.
in. I know. Great start. Her back was to the window. She was unresponsive, so in went the door. It was my first sudden death. I was nervous as anything, so I entered the address and approached her carefully. As I leaned over her, she opened her eyes and groaned. I fucking shit myself. I let out a scream and involuntarily threw myself back very quickly and landed on the seat of her wingback chair, which then tipped over backwards, leaving me looking up at the ceiling with my feet in the air. The cot with me was in tears, laughing while trying to summon an ambulance. Thankfully, I've always been good. Thankfully, I've always been able to laugh at myself when I fuck up.
So was she still alive?
No, she was dead, but obviously, like
The wee fucking motion.
bodies
Jesus
make
Christ!
sounds and stuff, don't they?
Then she'd end up in the fucking Graham Norton chair, legs up.
Well, my I remember going to a job. Again, it was a sudden death, and I had a special constable with me, and she'd never been to a death before. So I took her up, and we was like respectful and everything else. And we went upstairs to where this lady had passed away, and we then checked the body over. So I said, okay, take hold of him, bring her towards me. So we brought her towards me, and then as I did the same to her, so I looked on the other side. The lady, she hadn't gone completely stiff, so her hand fell and grabbed hold, like kind of touched this cop's arm or leg. So she full on screams and then lets go of this lady, and she like proper flops back onto the bed. Thankfully, the family didn't hear, and I then obviously had to go down and do the rest of the paperwork and stuff. But when I got back in that car, fuck me, I found that funny. How I did
Uh,
not burst out laughing at the time.
it's- some of the times are just horrendous when you're like, everything in your mind saying do not laugh, and it's just like that. It's the most inappropriate times to laugh, and it's just the worst feeling ever. Sudden death were one of the actual calls. I never really, you get used to most things. Every time I got a sudden death, I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sake! It's just something I just hated. I hated it every single
Really,
time.
they never bothered me.
No, I don't know what it was. I just fucking every time I just found it so depressing. Just thinking about the last movements, and then you're seeing them. I don't know. Just never got used to it. It didn't bother me that much. I'm not affected by it or anything. It's just like every time a call came in for a sudden death, I'm like, oh, fuck off.
It used to make me laugh. Actually, I remember it's probably quite inappropriate of me this. Um, but I remember uh, I got shouted up to go to a sudden death, and it was on what was called a grade 2. So you had to get there in an hour. So about 20 minutes, half an hour had gone by, and I was getting my kit on and everything else. And he shouted me up and he said, are you nearly there? And I shouted up and went, yeah, I'll be there soon. They're not going to get any more dead.
I'm not going anywhere.
I think we started at a word with me after that. It's like, all right,
Aye,
we get what you're saying, but
aye,
calm the
don't
fuck
say
down.
it. Aye, true
So
though.
anyway, so yeah, they never used to bother me. And by the sounds of it, you had a lot more empathy and compassion than I did. So the next one is this one's actually quite nice actually. I painted years ago and stopped due to being caught up in the job. Since coming across this podcast and the content which I make, I have inspired them to pick up the paintbrush and pursue their passion again, as painting helps them to make sense of what they're feeling and to get it all out. So thank you. So
There you
that's
go.
really nice. That.
I can know. Aye, definitely. Are they still in the job, this person?
Yeah. So their channel is the copper that paints. I think I'll share it on like my Instagram and I'll stick it in this. But I thought that was really nice, like because the job can be so intensive, and we can often give so much of ourselves to the job. So it's lovely that this person did that, and then obviously through seeing the content which we've been making, has gone. You know what? I'm gonna carry on with my passion, and I'm gonna do that, and that can only help someone's mental health and give them a bit more purpose, can it?
Definitely. That's cool. That's nice.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that one. Okay, we've got so many stories to go through, man. So many stories. It's awesome. So this next one. A few years back, I was going to court to get an open space closure order approved. I walk in all serious and get into the courtroom, sit down, open my bag, then suddenly I get a whiff of cat piss. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is that? Then it hits me. My bastard cat has got into my bag and pissed all over my court documents. So there I am, stood in front of the judge with paperwork that smells like a litter tray.
An open what?
So I think it's to like, if you've got like a house which is causing loads of problems in the community, you can go get
Yeah,
it
an
like a
antisocial
closure
behaviour order
order.
thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing where you basically kick them all out and you shut the house down.
Right, okay. I've never heard of that before. And in terms of open space, what it was called?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was called a closure order. where we
Right,
were.
okay.
So yeah, open space, close your orders. So yeah, that sort of thing. But imagine standing there talking to the judge or the magistrate, and I mean, cat piss stinks anyway.
Aye, no,
So
it's not a good place to be.
so they'd be standing there going, "You okay, officer? You look like you're getting a bit upset now." It's like, no, just my eyes are stinging.
Right,
Fucking
sorry, mate,
Tiddle's
man.
got in my bag.
Aye, yeah, I can actually, I feel like I can smell it. It's fucking stinking.
Yeah.
Not a good place to be.
No, I've been into some houses before where they have like indoor cats, and indoor cats are fine. You just got to make sure your house is clean. And you walk in, it's like someone punches you in the face. Like the smell can be overpowering.
I used to find that, see, in the winter, when you're obviously dressed like underneath your body, and you've got jumpers on, you've got a fucking hat on, everything. Then some of the houses you go into are just hotter than the surface of the earth, and then you go in and you're instantly baking within 30 seconds. But they call
Yeah,
you're taking a statement or something. It takes half an hour, and you're just getting more and more fucking heated up and horrible.
sweating.
Aye, you never found a happy medium if you could. If you wear your t-shirt, be fucking freezing outside, but then you don't wear your t-shirt and you wear a jumper and you're going to these houses and you're instantly pouring a sweat. I never found a good balance for that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And sometimes you're like, I could take off my jacket. Or the worst one is when you're kind of stuck is like, I don't know if you had it, you know, like the shell suits you have, the shell jacket.
Yeah,
You put that on and then you put your body armor over the top so it like stay in and stay warm. See,
that's what I'm
that's
talking
all
about.
right. That's all right, but if you get too hot, then you've got to start taking all your fucking kit off as well. And
Oh, it's horrible.
sometimes you just don't want to. You don't want to be vulnerable like that. So,
No, no chance. No chance.
I can imagine in fucking Glasgow as well.
Aye.
Um, here's a question for you in relation to Police Scotland. So I knew a lad who used to work in Police Scotland, and then he transferred down. It's a different legal system, isn't it? And he said a cop can charge someone on the spot and then summon them to court. Like, is that the case? Rather than needing to go to so in England and Wales, they would have to lock someone up and bail them, and then send the case to the Crown Prosecution Service or charge them in custody. Is it true a cop in Scotland can charge someone on the street if they've got like enough evidence at that time?
And that's pretty much the done thing. See, especially now, like people aren't getting held in custody as much. And I think since I've left, even more so now, it's like you need to fucking do something heinous to actually get held in custody for a night. So yeah, I think it's probably pretty rare now that you don't charge someone in the street and just release them for reports. Say I charge you in the street for an assault or something, then you'd get a letter through saying a 10 court in a day, and then it'd be dealt with like that. But yeah, it's rare that people actually get taken into custody now to get charged.
That sounds beautiful. That sounds so good because the amount of times you someone get locked up, like the on cam, like say shoplifting for example, they are on camera doing it. They've been held by security. They are they've got all the gear on them. They have to be arrested, taken to custody, booked into custody. They get a solicitor. You've then got a chat with them. Like you've got to do an official interview with them. Then you have to bail them, and then you've got to prepare all the paperwork. It's so much easier if you can go. Well, you've clearly done it, so I'm going to charge you, and we'll see you in court in 3 weeks or
I
something
feel
like that.
like so see every little kind of not little crime, but like a kind of I don't know a lesser crime like shoplifting, you'd need to take them to custody every single time.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. They
That's a pain in the
started
arse.
bringing in like they started bringing in like impromptu interviews. So you could do like a pocket notebook interview. You'd have to say like, do you want a solicitor or anything like? You'd have to go through the whole thing. But if they said, yeah, I want a solicitor, then you're gonna have to custody then because that's where it needs to happen. Um, but say if like say if someone's scrapping in the town or someone's committing like I don't know, being a dickhead in the street, you would have to arrest them and then take them to custody to then interview them. You couldn't just say, well, you've done something wrong. It's here on camera. I've got these three people over here who are willing to provide statements to say you've done it. Like, so what would happen with like the interview then on your side?
Well, if there wasn't enough evidence, you still need to interview them. But like, I don't understand. I actually can't get my head around that. So even if it's like a £2 shoplift, and you'd have to take them to custody. There's no other option.
If you wanted to lock them up, so if you wanted like an outcome, you'd have to either lock them up or you'd get them to do something like it'd be like an alcohol disposal. So you'd go, well, the shop don't want you here. You're going to be banned. Are you happy that you're going to be banned? Yeah, right. Sign there. and then that'd be like another outcome. But they only came in a little bit later because of the amount of people that were getting lifted for stuff when it could be dealt with there and then. But generally, with like if they had a bit of a history or they had a bit of a record, they wouldn't qualify for an out of court disposal. So you'd have to lock them up and then take them to custody and interview them. Um, Potentially to then like remand them later on if they knew that they weren't going to turn up to court. But yeah, I'd say majority of the time, if it was like an assault or something, you would 9 times out of 10 it would result in an arrest. Like you'd have like 30, 40 people in a custody suite in the morning, all to be dealt with. Or like so if someone's drunk and disorderly or pissed in the street, you'd lock them up and then you'd give them a producer in the morning, or you'd send them to court. They'd get a charge to go to court in the morning.
That's mad. Even like if there was 4 or 5 people in custody ahead of you when you took someone in, you know you're going to be there for 3 or 4 hours. It's like custody process is one of the things that over time just became such an elongated thing as well. Because there's so many care questions now because people are so terrified of something happening in
Yeah,
police
yeah.
custody because there's so many like big deals made out of that when something does go wrong. So you can see why everyone's wanting to cover their ass, but it just takes everything so much longer to ask all the care questions and then get through it. So yeah, pretty much if it's something that's not like mega sinister, then if there's enough evidence, you just charge them on the spot, and then um, yeah, they would get a letter through from court and then attend court that day. But if, like you say, if they're a prolific offender or they've got a kind of it's a decent crime, then they'd be taken to custody. But even now, I'm sure not even for domestics and stuff, like something that was seen before is like mega serious, people are still getting taken to custody and they're released for report or released or undertaken. When it never used to be like that. It's like if you had a knife or you're a domestic offender, you'd 100% be kept for court the next day or the next like if that was a weekend, you'd be in at the weekend and then in court Monday. But I think that's changing as well. Like you don't even before I left when I was getting someone with a knife, it wasn't guaranteed that they'd be kept into custody. Like it was probably if they didn't have much of a history, they'd just get let back out.
You know, that's crazy.
Which is
Someone
so
you lock.
so fucking frustrating because like you're putting yourself at risk to deal with these fuckers that have got the knives, particularly in the areas that are dealing drugs and stuff. So you're putting yourself at risk to get the knives and you take them to custody. It's like, we'll release them. So you release them to go back to do what they're doing before, and you inevitably bump into them later on that night again. So it makes
Yeah, I
you just
mean,
think,
and
why the fuck am I putting myself at risk when they're just going to be released back into the fucking wild in half an hour anyway?
I mean, you say if I remember locking up a lad who I locked him up. He had a shit ton of drugs on him. He had a load of money on him. He had 2, 3 phones, clearly dealing. Um, he got locked up, and it was I think about 12 months before we finally got charged because of sending it all through to the Crown Prosecution Service with all the evidence he wanted and everything else. And I think it was then 18 months before he went back to jail as a result of it. It's fucking crazy.
It makes you. It does make you think sometimes. What's the point? Like, why am I bothering my ass to do all this kind of stuff when it some quite often goes nowhere?
Well, again, that's another frustration. What I have, and what a lot of bobbies have, is that they put in so much time and effort. They go to court, they plead guilty, and they get like a suspended sentence or something. It's like, well, I've just spent the last 2 years trying to get you here, and then you have a 2 year suspended sentence. So I'll basically get my time back.
It's
Anyway, we
mad.
could talk about this.
Just quickly, I think it's strange because obviously that's Police Scotland and the English forces are different as well. But I think I spoke to cops in England, Scotland, Australia, New Zealand, America, and it all seems to be the same across the board. Like just that kind of drop in standard and drop in and repercussions of people doing mad shit. There just doesn't seem
Mhm.
to be the same.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, speaking of bad shit, this next one will will let you will make you laugh. So, was doing a Section 18 search, so searching somebody's home following somebody being locked up. I was with a student, and the student thought he'd found a few kilograms of cocaine under the bed in a brown box hidden underneath the bed. He then went to start bagging up this white powder before I stopped him. It turns out it wasn't a bag of cocaine, but instead it was the suspect's dad's ashes.
Jesus fuck. Again,
That's
it's one of those
fucking
things that
horrendous.
sounds made up. Like it sounds like that's got to be a lot of shite. Like that's got to be made up. But knowing what probationers get up to, but cops in general, to be fair, that sounds pretty legitimate. It sounds like it's something that could actually happen. Um,
Imagine that though. Imagine, imagine if they hadn't clocked it. Imagine if you had clocked it and you went to custody and they pulled out this bag and showed the suspect and then said, "What's this?"
Aye,
And turn around and go, "It's my fucking dad."
that's my dad, mate. Fuck, aye. I mean, like I
That's
said, it
horrific.
sounds one of those things that must be made up, but it's probably not.
Absolutely horrendous. And then you go on to say, "Writing that in my tutor diary, nothing has ever made me so happy." Yeah, you'd get the absolute piss taken out of you for that. That's funny. That I mean, it's horrendous. It's horrific, but it's also really funny.
I wouldn't put it past cops to do that.
You definitely have to have some kind of fucking dark humor to look at that shit, don't you? Like some of the stuff you deal with. So here's one. I'd like to remain anonymous, but there was a probationer we had, and the job came in of an ongoing domestic. The probationer was told to head out, to which he refused, ran away to hide in the bathroom crying. The sergeant and the tutor had to respond to the job, and whilst on scene dealing with the said job, the parent of the now ex-probationer turned up shouting. This caused a lot of confusion as no one knew who he was or why he was there till he informed the sergeant he was the dad of the probationer and that he was out of order for trying to make him attend a job he wasn't ready for. Now, unfortunately, I get a few stories like this where probationers and new students go to jobs or they kick off or they don't want to do something and parents turn up. And it just speaks to, like you mentioned before, are we hiring the right people? Because if you're not working at Tesco's, you're not working in a bar, and they're asking you to stay on a little bit late. You're a police officer. You're going to deal with awful things.
You know, the thing
Why are your
is,
parents
like,
getting involved?
that I've heard that before, that exact story, and I don't know if it's just this similar circumstance, but a different person, but that is fucking mental. Like, and I think it's probably true as well. Like, it's completely mental. I've heard of other ones as well. Like, someone's parents confiscated their work phone, so like their PDA,
I've heard that.
because the cop was 18 or something. So the parents like grounded them and took their phone off them. It's like that is it. That is actually a standard of person we're getting now. Like, what's going on?
Exactly. What the fuck? I've heard of a few. I've heard of people. I had a lady on the other week, and she's told me of a story what happened in her force of a cop who they were scene guard on a murder. And what happened was their mum kept ringing them and saying like, "When you coming home? When you finish? You know, I'm cooking, and you're meant to be off a few hours ago." And eventually, the parent turned up at the murder scene and made the officer get in the car and took him home. So
It's just
you know
mad.
what? Even if these stories aren't completely true, there are too many of these out there that there must be some truth to them, or at least one of them must be true. And even if one of them's true, even if one's true, then that's fucking wrong. That's messed up.
I think. See, honestly, from seeing what like you're saying, you get loads of messages from people saying this happened, that happened. I get the same, and like I think the majority will be true. It's just like so last week, 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump came to visit Glasgow, or Scotland. It wasn't quite Glasgow, just outside of Glasgow, and there were so many funny stories flying about. But one of them was, you get different posts for. So I think loads of the cops was protecting his golf course because he was playing golf the next day, so they all had different points in the course. Um, I think one of the probationers, I could be misquoting this, but exactly, but one of the probationers was found at a staging post just fast asleep with his yellow jacket on, just sleeping at the bit he's meant to be kind of watching. And you think sometimes maybe fair enough, you might fall asleep by mistake, but not actually fucking setting up a jacket to fall asleep at a place you're meant to be watching. But then also, as so the main entrance to Trump Turnberry, where he was going, there was cops at the front gates, obviously, and just as he was about to fucking pull in, there's a cop standing, whipped out a chicken tikka baguette and started eating that, and he couldn't see the problem with it. Couldn't see the problem with standing eating a chicken tikka baguette in public as Trump's about to roll in with his big entourage. Mental. But again, that's just symptomatic
Fucking
of the kind of standard
yeah,
that's coming in now.
yeah, yeah.
And
I mean,
more so than
my
that, just how entitled probationers are. Even when I was there, like, you'd get loads of probationers moaning like fuck because they hadn't been off. Like, say, if we're doing an early shift and you finish at 4, See if you're still there at 3:20. It's like, oh, why are we not away yet? It's like, wind your neck in. What other job in the world would you expect to be away 40 minutes early and like have that entitlement? Like, no. Or if they get a prisoner watch for the second time in 2 weeks, like, well, I did it last time. Why are they not doing it? It's like, just shut
I
up and
used
do
to
it.
hate that. It's like, well, hang on, listen. When I first started, I was brew bitch. There was 25 cops on like max strength on my shift, so I would have to fucking go around a little after briefing, little post-it note. My sergeant used to stand up and write, okay, right, you brew time. He used to give me the order. You go around, you get all the milk, you get everything else. You'd spend the first fucking half an hour just making brews for the shift. So it's like, right. And then what you'd have to do is it would be, you're not response trained, you don't have a taser, you're not method of entry trained, you're not ABE trained, you're not all these. There's a prisoner in hospital or there's a prisoner in custody. Like tough shit. That's your shift. That's where you're going. And you know what? You was just like, right, I'm at the bottom of the pile. And then it was kind of like a badge of honor. So when somebody new would come in, you'd hand over the gauntlet to them. Okay, now you're brew bitch. I'm no longer brew bitch.
Yeah, you've
And
done it.
it'd be, you've done it. Everyone had to do it. Everyone when they start. And you play collar number roulette. Who's got to go do this crap thing? Oh, how high is your collar number? Oh yeah, well mine's above yours, so off you go. Um, and I remember there was officers coming in going, no, I don't drink cups of tea, so therefore I don't have to make them. It's like
Shut the
stop.
fuck up and make it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like you can complain about that while I'm drinking my tea, what you made me, because
Yeah,
that's what you do.
yeah.
And they'd be like, "Oh, it's bullying. It's not bullying at all. It's
No, it's
part of
not.
fitting into a team, mate."
I think it's harder though. See if you are going to be a sergeant or a kind of senior cop these days. It's hard to be able to say this, and it's just harmless stuff, not like anything bad or like that bullying or anything. But like it's hard to say anything these days without like worrying about oh shit, how they're going to take that, how they're going to interpret that as like am I going to offend someone? Yeah, it's changing. It's changed days. It's getting harder definitely.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I remember I had a sergeant speak to me or inspector, one of them. They turned around and said, when they first started as a sergeant, if someone who cocked up, they just pull them into the back room, give them a bollocking, and then everything was fine. Maybe give them a bit of a shit job to go to or deal with, and like that was fine. But now it's everything's got to be official. It's like okay, now we need to sit down and we need to document this, and you don't want to give somebody you don't want to write someone up just because they may be messed up because they're learning, because then that puts them off making mistakes in the future, which they're going to make. So it just becomes a whole like official process. Um, Okay, so we've got another one here. So, right. So, I'm a serving officer coming up to 9 years. They say that I'd like your opinion on this actually. I went through two gross misconduct hearings. The first one for reacting verbally to being called a packy, and uh, the second was due to old Facebook posts I made over 10 years ago, which aren't politically correct by today's standard. These complaints were all NFA'd due to me being ill. But despite my frustrations in the job, I still really enjoy being a frontline officer. However, the job has made me somewhat cynical, and I do not trust the senior leadership team anymore. And the job has now become pandering to the public so they don't hurt anyone's feelings. And the justice system is massively flawed and needs drastic changes. So there we have a cop who's been racially abused, and they've reacted. Someone's put in a complaint, and then they're under for gross misconduct. And then the job, for whatever reason, have gone through their social media, found things from over 10 years ago and have said that's inappropriate. So then they've had another gross misconduct. What's your thoughts?
Uh, so firstly, why have they went back 10 years to look at his social media page? Has there been a reason for that, or is it just because he's getting investigated about something else, so they go through other
Doesn't
stuff?
say, mate. Doesn't say.
Um, because I think it's hard to hold someone to account for what they said 10 years ago, and when it's totally different days. Like if you watch fucking In-Betweeners, do you know, if you watch that now, you'd be offended.
Oh, well, it's
Do you
like
mean
Little
which is
Britain.
yeah, Little Britain? Like it's just like that was kind of acceptable like humor back then, but now like that's you watch that back and even like you think oh that's wild, but it was just funny at the time. So if you're holding someone to account for something they said 10 years ago, it's not really fair. I don't think you can do that. And in terms of reacting for being racially abused, that's pretty poor. Like you've got to understand if you are being racially abused, how that like that's got to be a kind of mitigating circumstance. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine what it's like to be racially abused and feel like that. So obviously it depends on exactly what's happened, but it just kind of, I don't know. He's feeling completely cynical now because he feels like he's been working the job for 9 years. He's been racially abused. He snapped back once and he's not been backed. So you'd like to think he's been racially abused basically because he's a cop, and then the cops aren't backing him. So I can totally understand why you become a bit cynical from that. And then more so when you're getting investigated from something you said. And obviously it depends what he said. If he said something completely outrageous, then it changes it a little bit. But if it's something like in between our joke or a Little Britain joke, then it was different times then. So you can't hold someone to account for that if it's like that. But if it's something, it just depends what he said.
And if it's certainly if it's something just this is the problem, isn't it? Because if I'm going through your social media trying to find something wrong, I'm already looking through the frame of I need to find something negative. So anything which I see is already skewed to that negative bias. If I'm a particularly sensitive person, then I'm going to see things which I'm going to take the wrong way, even completely out of context. So, yeah, I think it's absolute bullshit that you've been stuck on for that, pal. If you listen to this, I think it's absolute bullshit. Um, like we said, we don't know the full story, but I think it's completely wrong, and I think you got fair reason to be cynical. However, I'm happy to hear that you're still enjoying the job, and I'm sure you're very good at it. So there's that. Um, okay. So what's this one? What's this one? Oh, fucking hell! Right. So this is the last one. So whilst working on a crime squad in North London dealing with robberies, a call came in at a tube station. A black male has had his phone robbed and the police attended. We did an area search, but there was no trace for the suspects. The victim was unable to point anyone out. The victim gave a statement and relevant checks were done and CCTV obtained. It then transpires that there was no robbery, that they'd actually lost their phone and it was a mistake. The PC issues the victim with a so then the victim got stuck on for wasting police time, and within an hour, their mother came down to the station, and it turns out their mum was a prominent Labour MP, stating that the police are racist, and their then borough commander told the officer to rescind the ticket or face the consequences, and the ticket was withdrawn. So it's not what you know, so you know by the sounds of it. But that's not
No,
fair. That's not okay.
but I think at that point, as a cop, if that was me as a cop, and I know for a fact this wee guy's been completely at it, then it's up to you to stand by your guns and tell the commander to fuck off. Like you need to be strong. That like that's your decision. It's not theirs. It's not because an MP's can. It doesn't matter. Fuck if he's making false reports or whatever, then that needs to be dealt with as it is. You can't start changing things and apologising to people that don't deserve it. So I think as a cop there, that's where experience comes in. Because if you were experienced, you could say, "Fuck off. I'm dealing with that as I see fit." And just because some Labour MP fuckers came to the door, then nah, not for me.
What precedent does that send to people? That if that would be you or me, my parents not a Labour MP, not that I'm aware of anyway. My parents not a Labour MP, so or a politician or someone particularly powerful. So if it's the right person can complain about it, then the law doesn't apply and the powers don't apply. So then that creates a stance in the public to say that the police aren't fair. Justice is not blind. Justice depends on who kicks off the most and who that person is. And I don't like that the commander was basically threatening the officer, saying, "Do this or else." Like, that's just not okay. It's the officer's decision to do that. I used to always say this when there was a bit of a remit came in when I was in that if you went to a certain job, like an inspector or superintendent would be on the phone to you and say you have to arrest, even if you didn't feel it was justified. They were saying you have to arrest. And I used to say to him, it's not going to be your superintendent in the dock justifying that arrest to a barrister who's ripping you in half. Like, turn around and say, no, they're my powers. I will, if you want to lock them up, do it yourself. Like,
Yeah,
but this is where, like you said, the experience comes in. The lesser experienced officers don't want to upset the bosses. So this is why these decisions get made, but it's only to benefit the organisation and the bosses. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. All right. So we have we've gone there's a few other stories, but I appreciate we've been on for 50 minutes, so I don't want to keep you too long, mate. The last one is the good news story. So we like to finish the episode on a good news story, a story of emergency service workers doing really well, service to the public, the things because the media is so negative about the emergency services. When we do a very fucking hard job, whether you're in the police, ambulance service, or NHS, or the fire service as well. So, Andy, have you got a good news story to share?
Mate, I was just watching one of your videos. It was the K9 retirement one. Police dogs getting recognised for their service. I think it's absolutely class. There's my wee good
I
news
love
story.
that. I love that. Yeah, police dogs. I love watching videos of police dogs, in particular when they're chasing somebody.
Ah, it's
They
class.
chase somebody and manage to catch him because it's funny, isn't it? Like that police dog just thinks it's doing a job to then get a ball or a toy, whereas where we
Aye.
obviously know like, oh, you need to chase that person. But I absolutely love videos like that. It just makes me feel happy and feel good about
Aye.
myself.
Nice
So
wee way to finish it.
brilliant way to finish it. So I'd like to say thank you everyone for tuning in. If you do have a story to send in. The links to do that are all in the description. Andy, where can people follow you, mate? Where can they find you?
Shift Strong. So if you type into Instagram Shift Strong, it's a wee underscore at the end of it. But if you type into Shift Strong, you'll see my big ugly mush, and you can follow from there for all things
Amazing.
fitness, performance, in the police or emergency services
Um,
in general.
Amazing, mate. Amazing. So I will. I'll click your. I'll put your tags and everything else in the description of this episode. But yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you very much for everyone who's tuned in. Thank you for everyone who's listened to who's submitted, and Andy, big thanks to you, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for